Hello there, my name is David Northam. I'm the chair of the Weymouth Neighbourhood Plan Steering Group, and I'm also a councillor from Weymouth. And this is my colleague.
My name is Colin Marsh. I'm the vice chair of the Weymouth Neighbourhood Plan Steering Group, and I'm a resident. I live locally in Sutton Point.
And what we're here today to talk about is the Weymouth Neighbourhood Plan, which is out for consultation at the moment. And I'd like to start by talking about why do we need a plan. And the reason we need a plan is that this provides planning guidelines which are mandatory for developers to follow. So this enables us to specify what Weymouth residents need, and developers and the council, both Dorset Council and Weymouth Council, have to follow those development guidelines. This plan will probably come into place late 2024 or early 2025 and sits alongside the development plan. And it covers the whole of Weymouth, and Colin will just point this out on the map.
Yes, so this is the neighbourhood area. This needed to be established early in the process, and back in 2020 the Town Council established this area shown by the red line. This is largely or totally the area defined by the Weymouth Town Council, and the plan applies to all land planning issues within this particular boundary.
Okay, and how are we consulting at the moment, Colin? Would you like to talk about that?
Yeah, the consultation began way back over 3 years ago now, and what we did there was the initial consultation, contacting people to see what their ideas were in a very broad sense for Weymouth. We took those ideas and we built upon them with two forms of evidence. One was very much what we call objective evidence from documentation, previous reports, etc. And then very much what is really valuable, the opinion of the people of Weymouth, whether they be residents, businesses here, other organisations. We took those on board, and that is what led to us producing a pre-submission plan. At that stage, that becomes a very formalised process where what we call Regulation 14, which is what we're going through at the moment, and the purpose of that is to actually seek the views of the public on whether that plan should go forward to the next stages. Based on their feedback, we will make some changes, and then that will be submitted to Dorset Council as the local planning authority, who will largely take over for the subsequent stages, which are examination, independent examination, and then a referendum in a yes-no vote for all of the electors in the defined area that we've talked about there.
So we hope that by now every resident has had a copy of the leaflet which introduces them to this consultation, and the consultation runs until the 15th of December. You can see copies of the plan in your local library or the information centre in town, and you can also see copies online, and the link to that is either directly from our Town Council website or it's pointed out on the leaflet. We've also produced a précis, because this plan is quite long and complicated. It's a 200 page, it has 61 policies, and this goes across 5 themes. And this summary here tells you why we need the plan, where we are in the process which Colin has just described, and what does the plan cover. This plan is important to residents of Weymouth because it determines what development may or may not take place in the future, and it sets regulations which make that happen. So, for example, it allocates sites for potentially 1,000 homes, of which 50% will be affordable homes. That's social housing, which residents have told us is really what they need. This is housing for rent, not housing to buy. There's lots of housing being built to buy, but they need housing to rent. The other thing they've said is that they need better employment opportunities. And this is quite difficult in a neighbourhood plan, but we've allocated some sites as mixed development, both housing and employment, but also some new sites for employment. There isn't enough employment land in Weymouth, and we need to find ways to attract more employers to Weymouth to increase the opportunities for local residents from an employment point of view. But it's not just about development, it's also about protecting sites, and I'm going to hand over to Colin now to talk about some of that.
Right. We feel that it's really important in a neighbourhood plan that we get a sensible balance between what we need to develop in order to provide those homes and jobs for people in the future in Weymouth, with the areas that we conserve or protect for those future generations. There are a number of ways that we've achieved that, but one of the most important ways, and which is a very, very strong basis, is to designate local green space. And what we've done through the process is to ensure that those submissions for local green space come from the general public, from residents of the area who can appreciate what is really important to them. There are criteria that apply to those, and that is generally that they are close to communities, that they are areas which are important perhaps in terms of recreational use, wildlife, history, or for some other reasons. And they are properly evaluated, and if they are approved at the process, that means going through the examiner and through the final referendum, then these areas that we see on this map would be designated for protection from inappropriate development in the future. And what that really means is that their future use would actually be aligned to the reasons for the protection. So that may be recreational use, for example. Then in the future generations can actually benefit from that for recreational purposes. And it is great to see that not only have these come from the residents, but as you will see on this map, they are spread very evenly across the area.
Yeah. So one of the sections in the neighbourhood plan is about communities. And there are lots of different communities in Weymouth. And what we've tried to do is say that each community ought to have the daily facilities that it needs in the immediate vicinity. So we've identified some problems in that area. But we've also put in some policies which protects existing community buildings, and we've even got a policy that protects public houses because they're quite important for communities. We've looked at sports and recreation, and particularly we've looked at travel, and we think that we need to improve and protect the existing cycle and walking routes that we have. And one of the things we have in the plan is the proposal for reinvigorating the out-of-town park and ride. This will take pressure off the town centre car parks and will also act as a transport hub. So in the peak season when visitors arrive, we hope that they'll park their cars there and then take an electric vehicle or a bus into town.
One of the other areas that we've addressed in the plan is that of sustainable environment. People will recognise the real impact that climate change is having and the challenge that that presents for everyone for the future. We believe it's therefore appropriate that we've been very, very proactive in this area and have actually included a section to try and address some of those issues. Whilst it is very much a global issue, we can do our bit locally through the Weymouth Neighbourhood Plan. And we've addressed issues around carbon offset and carbon reduction, around waste resource management, around the impact on biodiversity and the importance of our wildlife in an area such as Weymouth. One of the areas that people consistently identify as one of their top priorities is the preservation of wildlife habitat and the wildlife associated with it. And of course, we have the challenges of the weather, particularly as a coastal community with the potential for coastal flooding, etc. And that is another area, the flood risk and the climate change risk that we have affected there. So we actually have addressed those issues in some depth in this plan.
Thanks, Colin. And to just add a little bit to that, where we have allocated sites for development, we've also made sure that the developers offer a large amount of land, often more land, to public open space or nature reserve. This is part of that biodiversity net gain which is necessary to make a plan balanced and sustainable for the future. So we really are after people responding to the neighbourhood plan, saying what they like and don't like about it. You can read it in the in the library or online. You can see the short précis that we've produced, and you can follow the links below this video to get to these points and produce your response before the 15th of December. Thanks.